Why does Bhutan exist? Karma, gunpowder, and the lead of this Chad named Ngawang Namgyal in the 1600s. Guy was a to-be ruler in Tibet, but got overshadowed by a Nepo baby, so he exiled himself to what is now Bhutan and crowned himself a ruler there, a Zhabdrung Rinpoche. But the situation in the region was chaotic, so the next years were spent subduing rival lamas, administering the region, building up the economy, and constructing a system of monastic administrative military fortifications, Dzongs, which would come in handy because the Tibetans came in knocking with their armies in the 1620s. First with barely any men, so they retreated, but then they launched a full-scale invasion. Bad timing though, for 1627 was the year the Portuguese first arrived in the region. On their way to find a mythical apostate church. Rinpoche promised to build churches for them, and in exchange he got gunpowder and firearms. And the Tibetans got annihilated, until they came back in 1629 and lost again. Figures, forts, and guns work against medieval armies, unless there's an enemy within. For 2 years later, some of Bhutan's lamas rebelled, inviting the Tibetans to help them out. For the Rinpoche, this was a total disaster. He was forced to flee to India, and the royal Bhutanese palace fell. The Tibetans went in looting the place, looking for hostages, but as they were doing this, they accidentally lit the palace's gunpowder reserves, and both the Tibetan army and the palace blew up like a firework. The surviving Tibetans thought divine forces were at play and left Bhutan for good. Yup. Karma. The Rinpoche returned to Bhutan, prayed for his fallen men, and began the construction of the new Dzong in 1637. That one stands to this day. And then he upped his foreign policy and allied other regional powers, which came in handy when the Tibetans returned in 1639 and lost. And after this all, they finally accepted Bhutan's independence. Except, psych, the Mongols came in the 1640s, drowned the Tibetan Chang King in a river, and launched a joint Tibetan-Mongol attack against Bhutan, and still lost. Well, at least the Mongols managed to get the Dalai Lamas in charge in Tibet after that, so something karmically positive for a change. And for Bhutan, from that point on, despite the threats from practically all of their neighbors, they're still around, whereas the Tibetans are now Chinese. So what gives? Well, the Bhutanese picked the right friends. They got the Brits, and now the Indians on their side. The Tibetans, meanwhile, did too little too late. And you know, they also had a way bigger target on their back due to their geopolitical position compared to little Bhutan. But yep, that's how this 400-year-old Tibetan breakaway state is still around, whereas the actual Tibet is not.